So Jennifer Grossman, who was Ayn Rand?
Ayn Rand is an immigrant. She was born Alyssa Rosenbaum in 1905. She and her two little sisters witnessed the Russian Revolution when she was just 12 from the window of her parents' apartment. After the revolution, the communists came and took her parents' business, all of their money, their home. For many years, she wandered and struggled, but there still was cinema, and she was inspired by what she saw on screen, that there was a possibility to go to a place where she could live her life and pursue her dreams, and that place was America. She came here just 6 years after women got the franchise to vote. She barely spoke a word of English. She worked many different jobs. She became a writing machine. She wrote screenplays. She wrote books. And then she wrote, of course, the epic novels that we know her best by, The Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged. And between those two books, she wrote Anthem, which was a short dystopian sci-fi novel, and that's the one that we chose to adapt as a graphic novel.
And we will get into that in just a minute. But what was her philosophy? Why is she still relevant among a segment of society today?
Well, because if you've been watching politics lately, what we are seeing a lot of is entitlement, free this, free that, the rich are to blame, the 1% are the ones that are causing the problems in our society. We are seeing an epidemic of envy, which Ayn Rand called the hatred of the good for being good. We are seeing an epidemic of greed, not as it is popularly talked about, but greed as Ayn Rand again defined it, as the desire for the unearned. We are actually in a moral moment as a country where capitalism is being questioned, our free market system is being questioned on a very fundamental basis of fairness. And that's why I think as people are searching for answers, Ayn Rand challenged all of those ideas. She challenged all of those values. She saw firsthand what collectivism and socialism had wrought and how it had destroyed her country. She came to America and was very alarmed to see these ideas being glamorized and popularized, and she spoke out, and it was none too appreciated at the time. And her books, which celebrated capitalism, celebrated the entrepreneur, celebrated individualism, are really unlike anything else that came along. And a lot of people, including myself, read them and said, wow, this is shocking. I just came from a board meeting, and one of our board members, I said, well, how is it that you first heard about this book? And he says he remembers as a child, he was in class, he was bored, and he heard the teacher writing, he had heard chalk on a chalkboard, and the teacher's voice saying, this is a dangerous woman. And as a 12-year-old boy, he perked up and said, dangerous woman, I got to take a look. And she is a very dangerous woman to the left because her ideas directly challenge the premises upon which their politics are based.
Ms. Grossman, you talked about the board. What board is this?
It's the board of the Atlas Society, which is the nonprofit philosophy think tank, which I am privileged to run. I've been privileged to run for about 3.5 years. It's been around for 30 years. It was founded by a Princeton-trained philosopher named David Kelly, and it has been dedicated to advancing her philosophy. It's a philosophy called Objectivism. We have a particular brand and take on Objectivism, which is open Objectivism. In the time that I've been involved with the organization, I've been very involved with making sure that we correctly identified our market as younger people who are being influenced by socialism, and that we communicated to them in ways that would be easily accessible to them. And as a result, we do a lot of memes, we do a lot of animated videos, We are now the top engaged per post Facebook page in the Liberty Movement. And we're at all of the conferences, and then also we're doing graphic novels, because that's another thing that's become very popular over the past 10 years. You go to any public library, certainly school library, graphic novels have become very popular with young people. So we thought this was a good work to adapt.
Why did Ayn Rand call her philosophy objectivism?
That's a very good question. She called it objectivism because it was a branch of philosophy. It had 5 branches: metaphysics, epistemology, politics, ethics, and aesthetics. And in its metaphysics, it believed that this world is reality, that reality exists, that it is not what you think it is. And her epistemology was logic and reason, and we can use our mind to identify it. And so it was premised upon the idea that reality exists. Her axiom, the identity axiom, A is A. So that's why she called it objectivism. She believed that there's an objective reality, and it's very different than the whole postmodern idea that things are really just based on your perspective.
Is it an amoral philosophy?
It is a deeply moral philosophy, and that is actually, historically, you'd think, well, how could it be that she had issues with libertarians or conservatives or this and that? And it went back to the morals, the morality, her ethics, which were based on individualism and self-ownership, that we have a right to our own lives, which, our founders believed that too. So it is not amoral in any sense. It is deeply moral, not religious, but moral, and even, I'd say, in some sense, sacred, because these are our lives, and our lives are sacred.
Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged are well known. What is Anthem about?
Anthem was written in 1938, and it is a dystopian world in which it is the premises of collectivism come to full fruit. It is a society in which the word I has been abolished, in which names have been abolished, in which individual choice has been abolished. And it's really the story of what happens when someone who is a true individual, in some ways, a very talented, a very curious, a very capable individual, finds himself in this society, doesn't fit, and starts to think for himself, and does his research and creates an invention that he thinks will be of great service to my fellow man, and that is the highest moral duty, is to serve our fellow man. And it's the story about what happens to him. So it's along the lines of a lot of dystopian stories, which are very popular now. Hunger Games and a lot of the things that we see in popular culture, and yet it also has a moral message to it.
And it predates Orwell's 1984 by about 10 years. Is it similar?
Yeah. It is similar. It is quite similar in some ways. It's shorter, but I think it's enormously appealing, and we've been shocked to see how popular it's been. We came out with it a year ago at Freedom Fest, and we've sold and distributed 25,000 copies since then. And so also, I'll just say briefly, again, in our overriding wanting to make this work accessible, a lot of people aren't even reading graphic novels. So we've taken the artwork, which was done by Dan Parsons, who's an award-winning Marvel Comics illustrator, and we've animated the artwork into an 18-part web series, and that's also available, and that's proved very popular among students.
Did Anthem sell in its day?
It did. It was popular, but not to the extent that Atlas Shrugged or The Fountainhead was.
Who is your co-editor or your co-adapter? Dan Parsons, and he also did the illustrations.
Dan Parsons did the illustrations. He is, as we speak, down at the San Diego Comic-Con. So one of the great benefits of working and branching out into this space is that, you know, a lot of libertarians, we go to these kinds of conferences, we do lectures, we do white papers. So we're now also exhibiting not just at every single student conference, but we've been at Comic-Cons around the country and introducing new audiences to this book.
Jennifer Grossman, is it fair to say that a dystopian society can exist on the left or the right, the extremes of the left or the right?
Well, I guess you would have to talk about how do we define the left and the right. I think if you define it, you could define it that the right is authoritarian or nationalistic, and the left is socialist. But I like to tend to look at things more in terms of a scope of, are you really in favor of minimal government and maximum freedom, or are you really believe that the government should make most of our choices? So if it's that extreme in terms of having the most minimal government possible, obviously there are some anarchists, and probably a lot around here. We are not anarchists. We do believe that government is necessary to secure property rights. So I could possibly see a dystopian future in which there was no protection for property rights, but I know I'd probably get a lot of argument around here.
How did you come to believe in this philosophy?
Well, that's a very good question. I think I came to it a little bit later than most. I was born in New Delhi, India. My parents were in the Peace Corps, so I was raised kind of as a Peace Corps baby. I grew up in Newton, Massachusetts, which is a very liberal community. My parents were Democrats. I don't think I ever met a Republican or a conservative or anything in all of my childhood years, and really grew up believing that anybody who didn't think like us was either very dumb or they were really bad people. I went to college at Harvard, and even there, which is not exactly a bastion of conservatism, I began to meet people that weren't necessarily liberals and Democrats, but they weren't dumb, and they didn't seem to be really just sadists getting up every morning figuring out how to hurt people. So it began to make me question my premises, and I started to do a little bit of research. It was a crack in sort of what I understood things to be, similar to what I think the protagonist in Anthem found. And the more I learned and dug deeper, the more I really found that I believed in individualism, and I believed in values like achievement and productivity and liberty, and that's what resonated with me. And when I read Ayn Rand, I was like, that's it, this is absolutely what I believe in. And I felt a debt of gratitude, and gratitude is a new theme we're promoting and working on at the Atlas Society as an antidote to the entitlement that we see in our society today. And I felt a real debt of gratitude. I wanted to repay that debt by sharing this philosophy with others. And I don't know, maybe it's the Peace Corps baby in me, but I think we're social beings, and we do have a benevolence, and we like to create community, and I would like to help others. I would like to make the world a better place. I would like them to be able to discover these answers that have been so deeply empowering for me.
What were the difficulties of turning Anthem, the novella, into Anthem, the graphic novel?
Well, that's another very good question. I think one of the challenges is the Atlas Society. We are a small nonprofit. We are dependent on people believing in us and investing in us. So, as they say, needs are infinite, resources are finite. So we had finite resources in order to accomplish this. And so we found an artist that also really believed in this book. and wanted to work with us and was willing to do it at a cost that we could afford and that he could afford. And I'd say one interesting challenge with that is that since he really was doing it as a labor of love, and he believed in this kind of Howard work, this is my creation, giving any direction and asking him to change his artwork or asking him to change the characters, that had to be done very diplomatically because, this was something he was doing because he wanted to, and it had to be enjoyable for him. So that was a big challenge.
Did you have to edit it down?
Not at all.
The entire novella is included in?
I wouldn't say, there is some adaptation, but I'd say 90% is in there. There's a little bit of some passages, some punctuation has been changed. And that gets back to your other question, which was the challenge in creating a piece of art, a piece of literature like this, is that people who are comic book consumers, they are used to seeing their content, their product in a particular way, which is not a lot of words. So for a comic book, this is probably still a little wordy, but I was trying to balance two goals here. One was being authentic and doing justice to what Ayn Rand wrote, and I couldn't have written it any better, but at the same time making sure that it was accessible and popular with the people that I believed it could benefit. So there you go.
Any thought about Atlas Shrugged and Fountainhead becoming graphic novels?
We stand ready. We will help with that process. We do not own the copyright to those two.
Who owns the copyright?
The estate of Ayn Rand, the Ayn Rand Institute. So I heard a couple of years ago, right after we announced that we were going to be doing this graphic novel, there was an announcement that they were going to do a graphic novel also of Atlas Shrugged, and that was maybe 3 years ago, and I haven't heard anything about that since. But we can help. We've got expertise, and we would love to do it, and we'll do it cheaply, and we'll do it well. We've got the distribution, so give us a call.
Is there tension between the Ayn Rand Institute or estate and the Atlas Society?
Well, the Atlas Society, which was founded by David Kelly, was actually founded, in part it was because of a tension between the two groups. He was kind of formally rejected by the Ayn Rand Institute and the sort of orthodox objectivism, and so, which was kind of tragic because there's not that many Princeton-trained objectivist philosophers around. So, but he founded his own organization, and that's from that the Atlas Society has grown.
And where is the Anthem, the graphic novel, available?
It is available on Amazon. We are doing Goodreads giveaways every month. We've had tens of thousands of people sign up for that. So, and then it's also available, as I said, as a video series on YouTube, on all of our on our Facebook, and on our website in the Now Playing section.